All right, guys, I am back with analyzing development of events. This is an interesting story. Actually, I learned several things throughout this story that I did not know before. It says Taking Action, the Endangered Species Act. It's by Joanna Santos. It all began with birds and President Theodore Roosevelt. Roosevelt was known for his love of nature, and when experts alerted him that water birds such as wood storks and brown pelicans were disappearing, he took action. In 1903, Roosevelt established the first national wildlife refuge at Pelican Island in Florida in order to protect the dwindling bird population. Now, the word dwindling is in blue here because if you click on it, it tells you the definition of dwindling. Becoming smaller or weaker, there are fewer of them. So there's less of those birds. The bird population is decreasing. The refuge helped some waterfowl to recover, but other bird species continue to disappear, including the passenger pigeon. Once the most common bird in the United States, it became extinct in 1914. That was something I learned as I read this. I did not know that. The picture here has a caption, which we always want to make sure to read the captions. It's one of our text features. The passenger pigeon, once common, went extinct. You can actually see what the passenger pigeon looked like. In the decades that followed, bird watchers saw fewer and fewer whooping cranes and peregrine falcons. It became rare to spot the majestic bald eagle, the very symbol of the United States, soaring in the sky. What was happening to the birds? Could it happen to other animals too? And how could it be stopped? Right, our first question popped up over here. How does the author introduce the decrease in bird population in the early 1900s? So I'm going to go back up to the beginning. So our introduction here is talking about President Roosevelt, how he loves nature, and experts came to him and said, something's going on, there's birds disappearing. And he was like, oh, I love birds and I want to make sure that they're protected. So I'm going to set up these refuge and I'm going to have this set up in Florida in order to protect the birds. So did they tell a story about how to protect the birds and his attempt to save the birds? Yeah, I like that one, but I'm going to read all of my choices. Are we comparing different birds that he watched? I mean, they said that he liked nature, but this isn't really the birds that he necessarily watched, and we're not comparing them. We're not looking at how they're similar. Are we describing his favorite birds and their habitats? They mentioned a couple different birds, but they're not necessarily his favorites, and it doesn't really go into great detail about where they lived. We're giving an example of an extinct bird that Roosevelt saw. It didn't say that he saw this bird. This just gave an example of a bird that ended up going extinct and how it used to be actually very plentiful. There used to be a lot of them. And because of things that were happening, he ended up going extinct. So I think our best choice is still telling a story about his attempt to save birds. And then we're going to keep reading down here. Click your green arrow. Hunting and chemicals. Hunting was a major reason birds, as well as other animals, began to disappear in the early 1900s. Eventually, some protections were put into place to prevent illegal hunting, trapping, and selling of dwindling species. Remember, dwindling means decreasing, less. However, it wasn't until Congress passed the 1966 Endangered Species Preservation Act that a list was created of native animals in danger of extinction. Under this act, programs were developed to protect these species and preserve their habitats. Unfortunately, by that time, a new threat had emerged. In the 1960s, DDT, a chemical substance used to kill insects and other pests, had gotten into waters that animals drink from. The pesticide made the animals sick, and many died before the Environmental Protection Agency made DDT illegal in 1972. And you could click here and it tells us about the Environmental Protection Agency is an organization that tries to protect the health of people and the environment. So before they could make DDT illegal, between that time, the 60s and 1972, a lot of animals did die because they were drinking the water that had gotten that chemical in it. So it was good for killing insects and pests, but not good for the animals. How does the author elaborate on the effort to save animals in the 1900s? So how do they give us more information or add to? The author states that hunting caused, slowed, or revealed the disappearance of animals. Well, we know that hunting is going to cause animals to disappear, right? If I hunt animals, they're going to go away. Next, she describes the passing of the Endangered Species Preservation Act, an attempt to blank. Save animals at risk. That sounds good. Describe animals in detail. They're not trying to describe them to us, tell us what their features, where they live, their different characteristics, what their body structures are, or find animals for sale. Now, we're definitely trying to reduce even the selling of animals and animals being put at risk. Then she explains that the government blanked the use of DDT, which harmed the animals. Did they block the use of DDT, record, or study? Remember, they blocked it. They ended up saying, no, it's illegal. So blocked best goes with being illegal. Click your green arrow. Protecting animals and their habitats. News of the harmful effects of DDT spread beyond bird and animal enthusiasts. All kinds of people began to demand action. So in 1973, Congress passed a bold new law called the Endangered Species Act, ESA. The ESA makes it illegal to harm any threatened or endangered species and its habitat. It also requires federal and state governments to create a plan to help the species recover. To this day, it's one of the most significant laws in the world for protecting wildlife. It covers mammals, birds, fish, insects, and even plants too. So it covers everything, not just certain wildlife. It covers many different types. What does it mean for a species to be endangered or threatened? If you wanted to learn more about that, you could click here. In what way is the ESA one of the most significant laws in the world for protecting wildlife? The ESA is a creation of concerned citizens who wanted to save injured wildlife. Well, it didn't say that it was created by citizens exactly, nor did it ever mention them being injured. Is it a useful tool for knowing which species are threatened or endangered? Part of the ESA is that it makes it illegal to hurt any animals that are threatened or endangered, but not necessarily that it's letting you know which ones are. It defends all kinds of species and insists upon their plans for recovery. So looking here, to this day, it's one of the most significant laws. It covers mammals, birds, fish, insects, and even plants. So that's all kinds of species. And it also looks into having them recover, having them increase, right? Wanting to save them and not have any more of them be harmed. Or does it force government to fix and pay for problems that DDT caused? This area doesn't mention really much of that. It definitely doesn't mention having them pay. There's no mention of money here. It has them create a plan to help them recover, but not necessarily pay. And seeing that sentence, create a plan to recover, plus all this list of species, makes me think defending all kinds of species and planning for their recovery is the best answer. Today, the ESA has listed more than 2,000 plants and animals as threatened or endangered. Without this law, many of these species wouldn't exist anymore. For example, the black-footed ferret was once one of the most endangered animals in the world. By 1987, there were only 18 left due to disease and loss of their habitat. But with help from scientists and the ESA, the number of ferrets had slowly risen to almost 400 by 2018. So here's the average recovery of endangered birds since this act was started. So from 1973, you can see the recovery is pretty low, but it's increasing. And it continues to increase throughout the 80s, 90s, kind of flattens out a little bit here in the early 2000s, and then a huge spike up here to 624% increase up until almost to where we are now. This is 2017, so just 3 years ago. A few species have recovered enough to be removed from the list. Bald eagles, American alligators, and Louisiana black bears are no longer endangered, so they're off the list. These changes are a welcome improvement for wildlife lovers, but saving species hasn't been beneficial for everyone. Click here, the word beneficial means good results, so it's not good for everybody. Interesting, you would think that having species be saved would be good for everybody, so I'm interested to see why they're saying it wouldn't. Which other example supports the idea that the Endangered Species Act has helped some species recover? So the number of black-footed ferrets increase, so recovering, right, increasing, coming back. New habitats for wildlife. Some types of plants have been added to the list. Well, that wouldn't be good for recovery. That would be the opposite. Certain animals have been taken off the list. That would show that they recovered. Or people are hopeful about saving wildlife. Well, I hope that they are, but not necessarily has anything to do with the recovery. So the fact that we're taking some animals off the list, like the bald eagle and the alligator, shows that those species are recovering. interested to see how it hasn't been beneficial for everybody. So it says a common goal. According to research data, a large majority of Americans supported the Endangered Species Act. However, sometimes the law puts the needs of wildlife over the needs of people. Interesting. So maybe that's why it's not beneficial for everybody. Because if the wildlife is more important than people, then people wouldn't find it very beneficial. Because the ESA protects the habitats of endangered species, people may not be allowed to use land in the way they want. In the 1990s, forests in Oregon became a battleground because of the northern spotted owl. Logging companies were not allowed to cut the forest because it was the endangered owl's only home. So in order to keep the owl protected, the logging companies couldn't cut down the forest, therefore benefiting the animal but not benefiting the logging company. But the companies argue that their employees would lose their jobs if they couldn't cut the trees. Definitely a big negative for people in the company. In the end, the loggers were permitted to cut down a small part of the forest, so they compromised. You can't cut it down, can't cut down all of it because the owls need somewhere to live. Well, you cut down a portion. Here is the owl. You can see the logging endangering the northern spotted owl, like this being its home now, with all those trees being cut down. So the owl is going to have to continue to move into other areas of the forest to survive. Which detail illustrates or shows the idea that the Endangered Species Act can favor animals over people? People almost lost their logging jobs. That's not good for people and shows animals over people. They only cut small parts of the forest. Well, that shows the compromise, but not really the favoritism there. Logging companies dislike the owl. I don't think they dislike the owl. It didn't say that. It just said that they needed to use that space in order to make money, in order to continue their company and have jobs for people. Or forests became dangerous places for people to log. Didn't say anything about them being dangerous by any means. So people almost losing their jobs, though, shows that they were favoring that owl over what was needed for the people. Similar conflicts continue today. As endangered species such as gray wolves recover, they may move into areas where people live and work. In some western states, gray wolves threaten ranchers' cattle and sheep. Some people say they have the right to get rid of gray wolves that prey on livestock, but others argue that doing so endangers the wolves. So, of course, ranchers want to keep their cattle and sheep protected, but other people are saying, well, if you get rid of the wolves, then that's not good for the wolves, and now they're endangered. Tough situation. How would you try to resolve this dilemma? There is no easy answer. Even though most people agree that saving endangered species is an important goal, the debate over how to share our planet continues. What challenge does the conclusion of the text ask readers to consider? Because of the ESA, there is not enough space for animals to live on ranches. What doesn't say there's not enough space? They're just worried about the wolves coming onto the ranch and harming the animals. By helping some animals recover, the ESA might put some other animals in danger. True, by helping the gray wolf recover, it could possibly put other animals like the cattle and sheep in danger. Because of the ESA, there is not enough ranches for animals in every state. It doesn't say anything about the number of ranches in each state, just that the ranchers are concerned. By helping some animals recover, the ESA might make other animals violent. By helping the wolves recover, it didn't say that the animals are going to become violent, just that they're concerned that those animals might now be in danger because of that wolf or other situations with other animals as well. So I think that would be our best choice. All right, and that's the last question for that one. So I will see you guys next week. Feel free to reach out to us if you have any questions or concerns. We are here for anything that you need. Bye, guys.